3 assignment. And this presentation will be how to participate in a 3-minute thesis. The idea of the 3-minute thesis is that you're going to take one slide, you're going to use 3 minutes to talk about your particular project in a language that anyone can understand. You can use as the basis of the 3-minute thesis your current dissertation proposal project, your thesis project, your capstone project, or your internship project. You're going to talk about the thesis in 3 different areas. First of all, you're going to talk about why you're doing the particular project. You're going to go into how you're doing your particular project. And finally, you're going to relate your project to the bigger world picture. So here's a short history of the 3-minute thesis. It actually began in 2008 at the University of Queensland. The University of Queensland's the mothership for the 3-minute thesis competition. At the time, the University of Queensland was in the midst of a severe drought, and to limit the use of water, the government encouraged using these 3-minute egg timers in the shower. The dean of the graduate school had a brilliant idea to take this particular time concept and use it for his graduate students to present their projects. In 2009, it became so popular that it was broadened to other universities in Australia and New Zealand. It was broadened even further to became international in 2013. And today, there are over 900 universities across the world in 85 different countries that take part in the 3-minute competition. So let's take a look at a few basic rules for the 3-minute thesis competition. First of all, only one single static PowerPoint slide can be used. That means there are no slide transitions, no animations, no movement of any kind in that single PowerPoint slide. There can be no additional electronic media, so no sounds, no videos, nothing except for that single static slide. No additional props, so no costumes, no instruments, no lab equipment, no other props, no other presentations except for that one single PowerPoint slide. Presentations are limited to exactly 3 minutes. The presentation stops at exactly 3 minutes, whether the competitor is finished or not. Presentations have to be in a spoken word, so no poems, raps, songs, a cappella, anything like that. And the presentations begin at the moment that the competitor begins to talk. And then finally, the judges' decisions are final in the competition. So no appeals, no second chances. And so here are a few criteria that the judges look at in terms of the 3-minute thesis competition. In terms of comprehension and content, first of all, was the presentation intelligible? Did it make clear, for example, an understanding of the background without diving into deep terminology or particular jargon? Was it clear? Did the presentation clearly describe the research or the project's goals, including conclusions, outcomes, and different directions that the project was going into? Order. Did the thesis presentation have a nice, clear, logical order that proceeded from one thought to the next thought to the next thought? Was the content relatable? Did it communicate to a lay audience, an audience that did not have the expertise or the background that the competitor did? And then timing. Was the timing good? Did it flow evenly throughout the presentation, or was it rushed in certain areas? The judges also look at the 3-minute thesis competition in terms of engagement and communication. Did the competitor make the presentation interesting? Did the audience feel drawn into that presentation? Was it topical? Was it of importance to the general audience? Did the competitor have a particular enthusiasm that provided energy for the presentation? Did the competitor have a connectivity to the audience that captivated them and drew them into the presentation? Was there movement in the presentation? Did the competitor have a stage presence? Did they have eye contact? Were they able to interact in a meaningful way with the audience? And was there any synergism? In other words, did the PowerPoint slide that was up there for the competitor, did it provide some synergy to the story that was being told? Or was it extraneous to the presentation? So here are a few tips in terms of putting together that all-important single slide for the 3-minute thesis presentation. First of all, keep the slide simple. The content should support the talk, but not be so overly complex that it confuses the audience, and the audience perhaps may be focusing or concentrating more on the slide than what's being talked about in the presentation. Make sure that the slide itself is eye-catching and is appealing visually. Remember that that slide is your brand in terms of your presentation. There's a major question that you want to think about in terms of the 3-minute thesis and the slide itself. Do you want to refer to the slide, or do you want to just leave it in the background in terms of letting the audience refer to it as you talk? In one approach, the audience lets the slide speak for itself, but doesn't really talk about the slide or point to it. In another approach, the speaker may give an opening introductory background talk and then refer to the slide, point to different areas of the slide, use that to talk about their research or their goals or their thoughts, and then come back to the audience and give a conclusion, broadening out their talk to the larger environment or universe. So in 2015, I was actually fortunate enough to be working at the University of Bath when their 3-minute thesis competition occurred, actually at the Bath Brew House just across the street from campus. It was a great locale, not only for generating a lot of interest in the 3-minute thesis, but obviously for the local environment as well. I think in terms of the presentation, I was right up at the very front here. I thought I'd use a couple of the winners from that 3-minute thesis as great examples for when you think about putting your presentation together. In many cases, these presentations don't have a whole lot to do with the biomedical sciences, but listen to the presentations and see if you're not drawn into that conversation, and whether at the end of that presentation leaves you asking for more. And so here is the first presentation.
I can't be the only one that hates waste. And in particular, I've got a problem with plastic waste. Now sure, some plastics are recycled, but the vast majority aren't. They end up in landfill, or they just add to the growing blanket of plastic waste on the ocean floor, where they can take as much as 1,000 years to decompose. Plastic bags can outlive us all. So imagine a plastic that broke down naturally within the environment to give off a harmless gas and something as sweet and as safe as sugar. And what's great about a plastic like that is it's safe enough that you can put it inside your body. So you can use it to encapsulate medicines, so it acts as a vehicle to deliver them to the parts of your body that need it. And that's what my research aims to do. Now let me just paint this from a different angle. A lot of the plastics that we rely on every day are made from crude oil. Crude oil is going to run out. So let's make plastics from waste sugar, and a gas we talk a lot about, a gas we've got too much of in the atmosphere, and that's carbon dioxide, or CO2. So I have this neat little cycle where I make a plastic from waste, sugar, and CO2 that breaks down within a reasonable time frame to give me the very components that I need to make it. Now, as a chemist, I can make a ring that consists of one sugar unit and one CO2 unit. So how do you go from a ring to a plastic? Well, think of it a bit like a paper chain. You take one ring, you open it up, and you link it to the next ring. You take the next ring and open it up and link it to the next, and so on until you create a long chain. And that's all a plastic or a polymer really is. Just a long chain made up of much smaller units repeated one after the other after the other. Now, the traditional way to do all of this is to use a really nasty chemical. But I think we can do better. So I design safer alternatives that I only have to add in the tiniest amount in order to tie these two building blocks of CO2 and sugar together. Now, what I add has to be able to do this without getting incorporated into that chain, without getting changed in any way, so that it's free to link one unit to the next and to the next. And that's a catalyst. And recently, my work has found a novel way of doing this that works at room temperature. So I don't need to waste any extra energy in heating it up. I don't need any high-tech equipment to pressurize that CO2 gas. And for me, it's a really exciting first step in the right direction that makes me feel a little bit sweeter about plastic waste. It was great to be able to present in a completely different way, in a completely different environment than what I normally do in my research. No conference setting and academics who are kind of experts in your field, but people were just generally interested, and it was really great to get it across and have them understand. what I was trying to say, what I was trying to do. I would say enjoy it, have fun, have a go, but prepare. 3 minutes is not long. It has to be well prepared. It has to be slick. Otherwise, you're just not going to fit it within that time. And never underestimate how nerve-wracking it is to present in a pub, even though it's a pub.
So here's another competitor at that University of Bath competition.
Hi, today I'm going to talk to you about improving vehicle efficiency using springs. I'm looking at torque converter dampers. A torque converter allows us to transfer power from an engine through the gearbox and to the rest of the vehicle. It transfers the maximum amount of power is at its most efficient when the two halves are locked together. In this locked efficient position, however, it also transfers the maximum amount of vibration, and since an engine is essentially a series of mini explosions, I'm sure you can understand that that has the potential to be quite a lot and make for quite an uncomfortable ride. So, our torque converters are fitted with these ingenious bits of kit called dampers. Now, these dampers are made out of a series of plates and springs, and it's actually the movement of these plates and how the springs interact with their surroundings that reduces that vibration. The better a damper is at reducing vibration, the more time we can spend with our torque converter locked up, making our vehicle more efficient. And a more efficient vehicle uses less fuel. This is better for the environment and a bit better for your wallet as well. The thing is that we don't actually know exactly how these things work, and that's what I'm trying to find out. By using a combination of rig testing, so running the gearbox between two big electric motors, and by building a series of computer simulations, I'm helping to understand a little bit more about how these dampers work and how the movement of these plates and the coils being forced into their surroundings and the friction between the coils, the housing and the oil reduces that vibration. Because if we can understand a little bit more about how they work, we'll know what we need to change in order to improve their performance. And better damper performance will lead to better vehicle efficiency, which means it'll be better for the environment. So that's the what and the how. Why? Why are we even doing this? Well, the whole industry is having a real big push to be more environmentally friendly, as it should be. One way of doing this is going to be through the use of alternative fuel sources, such as hydrogen or electricity. The thing is that currently alternative fuel sources are either not accessible to or do not meet the needs of the majority of consumers. So the industry is also looking at something called engine downsizing. Now this is brilliant. This is about getting the power of a big engine but from a much smaller engine with that smaller engine's efficiency. This is done using turbo or supercharging, sometimes even both. Now these powerful little engines produce a ton of vibration. So we're going to need an improved damper design that can cope with that. So after all, there's no point making a more environmentally friendly vehicle if it's so uncomfortable none of you want to buy it. So that's what I'm doing. By understanding a little bit more about how these dampers move and work, I'm helping to improve vehicle efficiency. And that's all being done by using some springs.
So I hope you enjoyed the presentations, but I think you'll also see that both of the presentations divided their talks up into three areas. First, they talked about what they were going to do. Then they talked about how they were going to do it. And then they talked about why they were doing it, actually putting it into the bigger picture. For this assignment, you're going to use the rules from the University of Quinlan website. You're going to create one single PowerPoint slide with no animation, and you're going to produce a maximum 3-minute long presentation. If you have any questions about the 3-minute thesis assignment, please be sure to contact myself or contact